Okay, so first off, apologies I couldn't get a video out yesterday. I was having a few drinks with some old friends, long overdue Christmas catch up. So I'm back today, having skipped the winners semi-finals and moved on to the winners finals of the Champions Chess Tour, Chessable Masters, the first event. Who's there? Well, obviously Magnus Carlsen, right? When is he not? But who's he playing? Well, here's a surprise name. Denis Lazavik, aka Denis the Menace, because he keeps upsetting these top players. And we pick up the match here in game 4. Magnus is on tilt because they've won a game each, but momentum is with Denis. He just won the last game and with black. So we go into this game 4 here, Magnus with black. If it's a draw, it goes to an Armageddon. This is exciting. Let's check it out. So Denis kicks off with pawn to d4 and Magnus goes d5. We get a c4 Queen's Gambit and c6, a Slav defense on the board. Notoriously solid, but also drawish here. Does Magnus want Armageddon? Well, presumably, but it doesn't go that way. We get bloodshed in this game. So knight f6 played, and now e3, a very popular system. You kill the bishop, but later you want to look for e4. So Magnus goes bishop g4. He had many options. This is kind of a timid system for black, because after h3, you immediately give the bishop pair, but queen recaptures, e6. It is solid. Look at that semi-Slav pawn formation, very nice, aka the party hat. Think of it from Magnus's point of view. Party hat on his head. Of course, at this point, he does a little celebratory dance because he's set up that desired pawn formation. You see it on camera. We get knight c3 on the board now. Knight bd7, bishop d3, and bishop d6. Very playable. Nice diagonal. But Magnus goes for this one. He ultimately wants to get the king to safety, which both players now do. Rook d1. That cannon eyeballing the black queen, preparing e4 later. Rook e8 from Magnus. He's looking for some e5 action, and queen e2 anticipates that pawn push. Why doesn't Magnus immediately play it here? Well, it's not the best. You get a liquidation on d5. Black emerges with an isolated queen's pawn. White doing quite well there. So queen e7 better. Just do some prophylaxis. Move that queen away from the attack. Now bishop d2 carries on some development here, and Magnus decides to take on c4. We get bishop recaptures. This bishop voluntarily dropping back, looking for a pawn break in future maybe. Plus this one's going to have to liberate itself soon. So then white also loses a tempo with the bishop. And that's exactly what we see now. After pawn e4, you can almost hear the bishop on d2 scream. And now Magnus punches right back with pawn e5. He wants to gain some central control as well. d5 in response. Now knight b6, very playable here. It comes in a moment. But first, bishop c5 played. And now Denis goes on a side quest. Who can play the most boring chess? Because he's got opportunities here, like takes on c6 to imbalance the game. But he goes for bishop e3, Magnus captures, queen takes back, queen c5, endgame anyone? Well, Denis declines, he's playing the endgame goat. Now knight b6, the bishop drops, it was pressured, takes on d5, and again Denis can imbalance the game here. You know, taking with the pawn is an option. Black gets some play, white gets some play, different game. But instead we see some pieces getting hoovered off the board. Magnus doesn't take again, he doesn't want to activate the rook, so queen e7 covers this pawn. Now we get rook a c1, and the players start playing some very natural logical moves. The rooks contest the files. We see a set come off the board. Little bit of king safety here. This one coming to g2. b6 from Magnus. Very nice structure. You know, think knight d7, c5 one day maybe. Then into e6 and d4. These are the kind of maneuvers they look for. Queen f3 played. Keeping an eye on this f7 pawn, keeping Magnus honest. We get rook d8 on the board, rook d3, an exchange of rooks, queen recaptures, queen c5, bishop c4, and a5. Magnus, he loves grinding. He's looking to grind like a grandma now for multiple moves here, show what he can do, having written this brilliant book with David Howell. Can Denis survive the pressure of an out-of-form World Blitz champion? So we get King f3, Queen back to c8, eyeballing the pawn. So the king comes back, Queen c6, King f3 protects the pawn once more. Does Magnus want a draw? Well, no. h5, he wants to keep grinding, baby. So bishop b3 tucks back, and now b5 from Magnus. Not king g2, sorry. Bishop d5, queen d7, now king g2. I was looking to move ahead. We get king f8, and now Denis could just hold things steady here. Queen d2, come onto the dark squares, look to check, good move, but he goes b4. Now it does look nice to fix these pawns on light squares, they could then be a target in future, but you give Magnus a more advanced pawn as well, so it's not ideal. Black in the driving seat slightly now, and especially after this next move, pawn to f4. That is a weakening one, because after captures, pawn recaptures, queen c7, we immediately see some of the challenges with this pawn. Now, in for a penny, in for a pound, the top way to go here is with f5. But Denis doesn't play it. He goes queen to d2 here, and it's actually a blunder, because if you go queen d6 in response, whoops, sorry, Magnus missed it, as you can see. Let's go to the back cave. Well, now you've got problems, because there's a threat to take on e4 with the knight, and then your queen drops. It's undefended. And if you go, say, queen e3, well, then this one drops, and you take, and you take, and you win a pawn. Queen d3, well, still then this pawn drops here. You can't hold everything together. So that was the way to go. But king e7, Magnus not on his best form. Now e5 comes. This knight takes here. Queen recaptures. We're into the heart of an endgame with the queens. So tricky. We get queen c5 check. King e6 played, king g3, Magnus checks, king h4, king f5, things getting dangerous. Imagine if you could check from here, that would be a checkmate after you take the queen on f2 if it intercepted. So what do we see? Well, e6 check. It's a great move. You know, you've opened up this check here. And the point is, you now give 2 pawns away, as we see in a minute here. Magnus swiping off the one on h3. But now Denis wins this one with check. King e7, and he starts giving this king the runaround. But in this position, he has rolled out the red carpet for that b-pawn. He should start pushing him, baby, as Yasser Serwan would say. Now, yes, Magnus can push this one and so on, but this was the way for white to go. However, this check was played. King e6, sorry, queen e6, been a long day. We get queen b8 check, king e7, queen c7 check, the king tucks back, and now this is a terrible blunder of a move. Queen to e5. Look at the bar drop. This is Garry Kasparov levels of blunder.
Exchanging pieces now. It's all over. Put your king on the square. What's the queen takes g4? What's he overlooked?
Now, why is this so bad? Well, the move to play here, which Magnus misses it, see if you can find it yourself if you want to pause and test your tactics, is this move of f6. Never play f6, as Feingold says, GM Ben Feingold. But it's good here, because after queen captures, forced of course, these were forked, queen takes back, king takes, well, the point is, you decoyed the king away, just can't get back in time to that runner, you make a baby girl. So, Magnus takes here, misses the move, we're back to level suddenly, king e7, but once again, there is only one drawing move here, that red carpet's rolled out, but Denis misses it, low on time, doesn't play b5, it would force the black king to come over, then the white king can come in, take this pawn, push this one. It's not more than a draw because black pushes this one, but it was the way to go. But Denis goes king f4, now it's lost. King e6, king e4, g5, you know, the pawn's just rumbling now. Denis doing nothing, those ones going through, the king over here to stop this one. These are running on their own, that is a lost endgame. So Magnus wins this one, he goes through to the grand final, which is on Wednesday. Now the losers play it out. I mean, they're literally called the losers because they lost their games. Not that I'm saying they are losers of people, that's how the tournament tournament's called, right? And then back on Wednesday, we'll get this grand final. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the video on screen for another epic game of chess, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.